Hello, hello, and welcome to the channel Highly Sensitive Wisdom. My name is Susanna, and today's topic is emotions and inner maps. So this is a continuation from the previous video called HSP, You Are Not Too Sensitive, where we explored the relationships both about between language and words that we receive from others, from people who are important to us or people who have power over us, and how that shapes us and our identity. And today we will, continue that exploration, but not from the perspective of language and words, but emotions. And I have recorded previous videos about emotions and the extremely important role of emotions, for human experiences and, creating who we are and how we function in this world. And yet, which contrast with the narratives that, oh, emotions are somehow a flaw, emotions should be avoided, we have to be rational and logical at all times, or emotions are just for weaklings, or you cannot express emotions, or people will exploit your vulnerability, which unfortunately is true in many cases. But yeah, emotions are extremely important, and we cannot just we are not emotionless beings, and we should not pretend to be emotionless beings. So in this video, we will also dive a bit deeper on the topic how emotions and our emotional brain helps shape our inner maps, and thus what kind of worldview we have and how we work in this or operate in this world. So if you like this content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and share your aha moments and key takeaways in the comment section so that we can inspire and uplift each other. I really enjoy it and love it when you participate actively and don't just consume this content passively, because this is not meant for entertainment or information only. It's meant for transformation. So thank you in advance for your participation. All right, so I'll keep quoting from the same book from the last video, and I'll drop the link to that video in the description below. HSPs, you are not too sensitive. So the book is The Body Keeps the Score, Mind, Brain, and Body in the Transformation of Trauma by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. So, as I mentioned in the last video, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk is a psychiatrist in the US. He has more than 30 years of clinical experience working with traumatized people, both adult men who were war veterans in Vietnam and returning to the US, having developed PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. He has also worked with grown-up women who were sexually abused in childhood, who had developed very similar symptoms and very similar patterns of PTSD. And then he has also worked with children while they were children, working on developmental trauma, because depending on where on your life's journey, and especially during your formative years, childhood and teenage years, those traumas will have a much deeper impact on you than had they occurred later in life. When you have a more solid sense of self, when your nervous system and your brain is fully developed, and that only happens by age 25, and when you have already more resilience and more resources, also in terms of financial resources or network and so forth. So there are so many aspects to take into consideration when we talk about trauma. So today's discussion will not be about trauma per se, but as I explained also in the last video, when things are going well in our life, we don't usually dig deeper to find out how things are connected, and that's also why someone, in this case, a psychiatrist specialized in trauma, has a very well developed, expertise not only on trauma but on all kinds of areas of how human beings function, both memory, how the sense of identity is developed in humans, how we develop attachments as children with our caregivers, usually our parents, how our inner maps of the world are formed while we are growing up, how there can be a split or a disconnection between the story we tell others and what we experience within, and so many other very relevant topics for, I would say, all human beings, but especially for highly sensitive people. For us, usually the gap between who others tell us that we are and who we know to be true that we are inside, those are usually quite different. So either if we align with what others tell us about ourselves and we believe their narrative about sensitive being a weakness and so forth, then we will be always at war with ourselves. And then, yeah, doesn't matter how hard we work to achieve our goals because, yeah, we still have to, you know, reconcile those tensions within ourselves and reconnect the dots. Um, yeah, we can never work hard enough to compensate for someone else's lack of understanding or someone else's lack of empathy or someone else's lack of willingness to get to know us or willingness to treat us with respect, that's not our responsibility to take on their workload of informing themselves or, learning to treat others with respect, and not just based on appearances or their perception, what you can offer them, what kind of benefits you can offer them, and then they treat you well if they can, get things from you, and they treat you poorly if you have nothing to offer them, So many people operate like that. But yeah, so we will be discussing today emotions in inner maps so that you, dear watcher, if you're highly sensitive, you can start to reconcile those things that no, you don't have to listen what others say to you. It doesn't matter if everyone around you have agreed, they have some kind of consensus that you're too sensitive. No, that is not the truth. Just because they have agreed between them, just because there seems to be a consensus, doesn't mean that what they say is true. You always have to listen to your own truth, and stand in your power. And that's also why I will read this passage so you understand how it works on a psychological and very deep level of the formation of our cells growing up. So yeah, I highly recommend this book, not only so The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel and Kolk. So I recommend this book not only for people who are traumatized and want to understand how to heal and, what happened to them, and not only to and I recommend this, to everyone interested in something that has to do with human beings and why we function the way we do, and not just on the surface, but diving deep. Because this author, Dr. Bessel, he goes deep, and that's also why this is such a favorite book of mine. Because I love to go deep, and I'm not interested in what happens on the surface. I want to go deep on all the topics that I study and explore. And dear watcher, if you're highly sensitive, you are probably the same. You love to go deep and understand the truth, and not just, surface level, narratives or fluff or, whatever. Yeah, I do despise things that stay on surface level. That's so uninteresting. Um, so I will start quoting from a chapter. Let's see what chapter is this. Yeah, it's part 3, The Minds of Children. Chapter 8, Trapped in Relationships, The Cost of Abuse and Neglect. So yeah, the part I will read is not specifically about abuse and neglect, but yeah, how our inner maps are formed. Um, and yeah, obviously those inner maps will be radically different if we have experienced abuse and neglect or other kinds of trauma growing up. Because let me remind you that there are many kinds of trauma. It's not only the horrific things that maybe you think of trauma, like having been in war or having been raped or having, experienced extreme natural disasters or having, lost where you lost everything and you lost your home and you lost everything. Not only those extremes are trauma. Trauma is also neglect or abuse. That's also trauma. So if someone was bullying you growing up for being sensitive, that's trauma. So there are many different kinds of trauma. So yeah, this book I believe will be very enlightening to you, or at least empowering to you, dear watcher, as a highly sensitive person. And that's also why I recommend not only staying in a narrow lane of like, oh, I'm highly sensitive, so I'll only read about high sensitivity, or I will only read books written by highly sensitive people. And no, widen and broaden the scope so you can also get these very important foundational pieces of how human beings work in general, not just you, but all human beings, and vice versa. I mean, there are so many people who get stuck in their own perspective and only ever want to study their own perspective from their own perspective and stay in the comfort zone and in the status quo, but by not broadening their scope. So usually, highly sensitive people are more, motivated to learn and more open-minded and more interested in learning about all kinds of topics than people who are less sensitive. But yeah, as well, there could be cases where you stay in your comfort zone by only relying on, stuff around high sensitivity, and that would also be a trap. We need to broaden the scope and learn with competent people across all boards, so to speak. So the chapter Trapped in Relationships, I will start quoting. So I quote, as I discussed in the previous chapter, attachment researchers have shown that our earliest caregivers don't only feed us, dress us, and comfort us when we are upset. They shape the way our rapidly growing brain perceives reality. Our interactions with our caregivers convey what is safe and what is dangerous, whom we can count on and who will let us down, what we need to do to get our needs met. This information is embodied in the warp and woof of our brain circuitry and forms a template of how we think of ourselves and the world around us. These inner maps are remarkably stable across time, and this is super important. So I'll read that again. These inner maps are remarkably stable across time. This doesn't mean, however, that our maps can't be modified by experience. A deep love relationship, particularly during adolescence, when the brain once again goes through a period of exponential change, truly can transform us. So can the birth of a child, as our babies often teach us how to love. Adults who were abused or neglected as children can still learn the beauty of intimacy and mutual trust, or have a deep spiritual experience that opens them to a larger universe. In contrast, previously uncontaminated childhood maps can become so distorted by an adult rape or assault that all roads are rerouted into terror or despair. These responses are not reasonable and therefore cannot be changed simply by reframing irrational beliefs. Our maps of the world are encoded in the emotional brain, and changing them means having to recognize that part of the central nervous system, the subject of the treatment section of this book. Nonetheless, learning to recognize irrational thoughts and behavior can be a useful first step. Then I'll skip a few lines that have to do with a client case. If you want, all the goodies of the book, buy to read it and then read it again once you have started assimilating the very deep content. So I keep quoting. Generally, the rational brain can override the emotional brain as long as our fears don't hijack us. For example, your fear of being flagged down by the police can turn instantly to gratitude when the cop warns you that there's an accident ahead. But the moment we feel trapped, enraged, or rejected, we are vulnerable to activating old maps and to follow their directions. Change begins when we learn to own our emotional brains. That means learning to observe and tolerate the heartbreaking and gut-wrenching sensations that register misery and humiliation. Only after learning to bear what is going on inside can we start to befriend rather than obliterate the emotions that keep our maps fixed and immutable. End of quote. So, this is very serious. This is extremely serious. I don't even know where to start. But the fact that the world keeps telling us that emotions should be banned, even if they don't use that exact word, but like, oh, emotions are flaw, emotions are something bad, we have to be rational at all times, we cannot show our emotions, we have to repress them, or we have to, pretend all kinds of things, pretending that we don't even have emotions. And yet emotions are so extremely important for forming and shaping our entire perception of reality. That is immense. Emotions, and then again, as highly sensitive people, we feel deeply, and sometimes that is one of the things held against us. Like, not only you're too sensitive, but you're too emotional. You are too emotional. learn to control yourself, or learn to this and that, or yeah, basically we shouldn't show that we have emotions. And yet emotions are at the foundation of creating our inner maps that were created in childhood, that will, dictate to a large extent our, not only our worldview, but how we relate to other people, the kind of relationships we will have in adulthood, the kind of yeah, so many things based on the inner maps that were created when we were growing up. And that's also why it's so important. And if you are a parent and you have a highly sensitive child, you cannot take this lightly. You have to make sure that, regardless of your personal opinions about sensitivity, it's your responsibility to give your children a safe upbringing, a safe and loving and caring upbringing, a safe and loving and caring home environment, because you are setting you're creating the foundations for that individual's future life for decades ahead. So regardless of your opinion of sensitivity, even if you, oh no, my child is too sensitive, this is a problem. No, it's not a problem. You have to reframe it in ways that you can perceive and genuinely believe that sensitivity is a superpower and an asset, and convey that to your child over and over and over again. And they will be super successful as adults if you do that, because that will shape their inner maps of the world and of themselves. Because when we speak about inner maps, that's not only the external world, that's also the internal world. So it's not only, a map, our inner maps, our inner representations of the world outside ourselves, but also inside ourselves, and also our place in the world. So if we learn growing up that sensitivity is a gift, it's a blessing, it's a superpower, it's an asset, it's something to be proud of, something to cherish, something to develop further, something we can harness a lot of good things, from aligning with and working with our sensitivity instead of trying to repress it. So it's super important also to give support to your child or children who are highly sensitive, even if you're not sensitive at all yourself, or even if you think sensitive is a flaw, because that's what society keeps telling us over and over and over again. You have to make sure that your child feels loved and cared for and supported and safe, regardless of your opinion of their sensitivity. But yeah, that was a parenthesis. So dear watcher, if you are highly sensitive, you did not receive that kind of feedback or support from your parents growing up, mirroring that your sensitivity is, your greatest asset and blessing and a gift and a superpower, which truly it is. If you were not mirrored that, then probably you have internal maps also that confirm that, yeah, sensitivity is something complex or difficult, or yeah, I shouldn't be so sensitive, because if that is the message you have received over and over, something is wrong with me because I'm too sensitive or I'm too emotional. Yeah, your caregivers and the adults in your life while you were growing up, they have not mirrored correctly who you are, and they have, contributed to creating inner maps of reality and even inner maps of the world that simply are out of alignment with who you truly are. And that could also keep you trapped in living in a trauma personality and not your true personality, or in a false sense of self, which, yeah, it can be quite challenging to get to know who you truly are if everyone else has to mirror back to you things that are simply not true. But as I said previously, you cannot be at war with yourself, so you have to stand in your power and find ways to own your sensitivity, and not only own it and defend it, but also see it as something very, very positive. Because you are sensitive from birth, you will keep being sensitive the rest of your life. That's wired into your nervous system, that's wired into your brain, that's wired into your entire being. And you cannot, not only would it be impossible to be at war with yourself your entire life, but it's impossible to please everyone else at your expense, putting yourself last. You cannot do that. You owe it to yourself to be proud of who you are, and to make the most out of your sensitivity. So what I want to discuss also in this video about emotions and inner maps, this passage that I just read from one of the world's foremost experts on trauma, Dr. Bessel and Kolk. This is also very much aligned with what I learned during the certification process of becoming a certified belief code practitioner, working with subconscious reprogramming. And I recorded previous videos about subconscious reprogramming. If you're interested, you want more information on that. One is called Get Inside Information on What It's Like to Do Energy Work, and the other one is Demo Session Belief Code. I'll drop the links to both those in the description below. And in addition to being a psychologist, I'm also certified emotion code, body code, and belief code practitioner. So I also speak, from my professional experience with energy work and subconscious reprogramming in clients. So this that I just read about internal maps and how emotions are, and the emotional brain, those are extremely important for how those inner maps are created in the first place. That's very much aligned with the perspective of the subconscious programming, because when we work with subconscious reprogramming, we are reprogramming, subconsciously held beliefs that were already there. Many of them were created in childhood, but not all of them. Many were created, during emotionally charged events or traumatic events, also in adulthood. So new subconsciously held beliefs and belief systems can be created at any point in time. Which is different than from the foundations that were laid during your formative years, your childhood and teenage years. But there again, we see how extremely important emotions are and should not be dismissed or like, oh, I'm too emotional. No, your emotions are messengers. I did record a video called Decoding the Matrix in Real Life. I'll drop the link to that in the description below, where I share some, conclusions drawn from 7 years of living in France and working in Paris, and 7 years of conscious systematic observations of the French. And as I have mentioned in recent videos, living in France for me has been, a very hard life school. Or school, but it has taught me a lot about how humans work, and not just from studying it at university as a psychology student, but in a real life setting, seeing so many phenomena playing out. So truly, being among French people on their territory, that has been a textbook in a real life setting on how humans operate and human interactions and dynamics and so forth. But unfortunately, that was a very challenging and exhausting. But yeah, I gained a very deep understanding of many things that have to do with humans and human psyche, that I had a more intellectual, superficial understanding previously from just studying about them. It's different to be immersed in it, especially at so many levels working at the same time, not only, emotional, mental levels, spiritual levels. Those experiences truly were a pressure cooker for my consciousness. But that's besides the point right now. Emotions are very important, and we should never underestimate emotions, nor ignore them, nor dismiss them, nor just accept the narratives from others. Oh, you're too sensitive, or you're too emotional. Not realizing that our emotions, they are fundamental to so many processes in life. So in this passage, we saw that emotions and the emotional brain are fundamental for laying the foundations of our inner maps of reality, that, as it says here, that these inner maps are remarkably stable across time. So they truly lay the foundation for the rest of our lives, unless we actively and consciously work with, for instance, reprogramming our subconsciously held beliefs and or other kinds of healing modalities to align, your inner reality and your inner eternal maps, your subconsciously held beliefs. Align that not with how you were treated growing up, and not what adults believed about you and told you, not aligning that with who they told you you were, because they didn't really know you, but align that with what you want to create for your own life, so that you don't simply react to what was done to you. You don't just act out on your childhood conditioning, because for most people, our childhood conditioning, or I don't know if most people, but many people, our childhood conditioning is quite, reduced, and we come to planet Earth also to learn, to grow, to evolve, to transcend limitations, to we're not only human beings, we are human becomings. So ideally, we will always be learning, growing, and evolving, and become who God created us to be, and not just conform or settle for who our parents told us we are when we are growing up, or who our parents expected us to be, because usually they expect us to be like them, So many parents put children to the world thinking, oh, I will have cups on myself, running around in the world. And then when the children start showing independence and, oh, I have my own life, and yeah, I chose a different path than you did, sometimes parents will be like, they want us to be cups of them, No, we are our own selves, our own, individuals. And obviously, well, for me at least, it's obvious that our calling from God, and the purpose God had for us already before we incarnated on this physical plane called Earth, is so much more important than the expectations or desires of our parents. But yeah, our parents shape us massively in so many ways, and so many parents don't realize what an enormous power they have over their children and the future of their children. But yes, that will have to be the topic for another video. But yeah, so emotions. So dear watcher, do not fall into the trap of believing you are too emotional. You are not. Your emotions are trying to tell you something. They are messengers. They are trying to tell you some kind of truth. Maybe that is uncomfortable even for you, but that could be comfortable to people around you because that doesn't align with their narratives or their agenda or their worldview or their desires or what they want you to do. But don't ignore your emotions. Don't just assume that emotions that are I don't know, maybe bothersome or that appear repeatedly. Usually they are there to wake you up to something inside you that you're not yet aware of on a conscious mind level, because the conscious mind is only 1%, and the rest is subconscious and unconscious. And it would be impossible for us to live, it would be impossible for us to be aware of everything going on inside us, because then we would be stuck in processing mode all the time. We wouldn't get anything done ever in the outer world. And we all have, bills to pay. We all have responsibilities to take care of. We all have to, household chores to take care of. We have to make sure to give our bodies food and clothes and, so forth. So yeah, we have to also be functional in the outer world. So yeah, obviously much of what is going on inside us has to be beneath the threshold for conscious awareness, or we could not function in this world, the outer world, at all. But that being said, when something is insisting, such as emotions, certain emotions that keep coming up to the surface, do take that seriously, because they're trying to tell you something, and possibly they are trying to wake you up to a reality that you're not yet consciously aware of. And seeing emotions as messengers, trying to tell you the truth in whatever area that you're not yet aware of, is super important to listen to those emotions and take them seriously, not just dismiss them or not trying to distract yourself. So many people, they try to distract themselves when uncomfortable emotions come up. Like, many people distract themselves with, consuming entertainment like films and series or video games. Some use, alcohol or drugs. Some become workaholic. Some become shopaholic. Some engage in, relationships that give them some kind of, satisfaction in the short term, but turn out to be detrimental for their future and in the long term. So we cannot just ignore our emotions. Ignoring our emotions or dismissing them as unimportant is one of the most detrimental, and I would even say one of the most dangerous things we could do. Take them seriously, for sure. And I will not. This video will not be very long. I have recorded many long videos lately. I have more videos to record, so let's keep keep track with those videos. But yeah, this is some food for thought, and yeah, let me know also in the comment section your experiences with your emotions. We are eager to learn also about your experiences and sharing, experiences and insights with each other. I want this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom, to be a living community. So please participate also in the comment section. So with this, dear watcher, I will start wrapping up, and yeah, I will see you soon in another video. As always, take care, stay hydrated, keep learning, and bye for now.